Hey everyone, welcome to the 2025 Stash Builder collaboration. I'm Misty Delaney and I'm your hostess. I'm also very late, but that's kind of why we changed the routine this year to say anytime in the first week, and I'm just barely within the first week. Okay? Anyway, so as I explained in the introduction last month, instead of having a suggestion for the month, which doesn't really necessarily, it was amazing how many of us found that we did need that baby card or we did need that wedding card, even though we hadn't intended to and hadn't realized it. Nonetheless, yeah, we can't count on that every year. So what we're going to do this year is, here are some suggestions. Decide what you need in your stash and just work along with us. I think that's going to be the most useful because, after all, there are other collaborations for more specific kinds of cards, and those are fantastic and fun, but there's the less fun cards, like the Sympathy cards, that we're all of us going to need one or two at some point. Anyway, I have been playing around with a design I found over on Inkylicious that Debbie demonstrated about 3 years ago. I'll give a link down below. And I don't think I've perfected it yet. It's not ready for prime time. Is that how they put it? Anyway, so this was my first attempt. Yeah, that's probably going to be just a letter holder because it probably belongs in the trash, but I can't put my stuff in the trash. It's getting better. So I think I'll show you how I did this, and maybe I will get one that's even better. So what you need is a little piece of watercolor cardstock. This is just the cheap stuff from the local Lincraft, which is sort of a Joann's Michaels kind of. Anyway, they have art supplies of all kinds and lots of other things, but this is their discount pads. Now, the way Debbie demonstrated it, she didn't need her stamping platform. However, I never got very good with stamps until Wandering Dreamer introduced me to the concept. These things are a miracle. Even for people like me, they make it worthwhile. Sorry, didn't mean to bump that. Anyway, so put this down. Now, this is a bit of a messy process, so I recommend that you work with a stamp that's already got a bit of foam so that you can take the foam out, because you're not going to like the effect if you get your foam wet. And place that more or less in the middle. As you can see, I tore my watercolor paper at the end, so it doesn't matter too much what the placement is. Then we give it a spritz. I'm spraying some water on my mat so that I can make sure that I actually have a clean brush. And I'm spreading the water out. Now for this first layer, I use peeled paint, which is kind of a yellowy green. And I'm putting it on my stamp. Now for this first one, we just want an impression of where the trees will be. So it doesn't matter too much how well inked the stamp is. And I'm going to leave it down for a moment so that the ink can spread throughout that wet card. Speaking of distressings, Wandering Dreamer mentioned to me that in a recent video, Tim Holtz sounded like he was retiring. He's been making sounds like that for a while, I guess, but yeah. That means that his stuff is going to lose its cachet over the next little while. So if there were any re-inkers that you wanted, or any of his perennial designs that you wanted, it might be a good idea to grab them before it's too late. I have about 50 re-inkers I want, so there we go. Now, I'm going to put some water on my brush and spread the ink out a little bit better, because we just want an impression here. I think I maybe didn't get the stamp entirely clean after my last attempt, because some of these greens are a little darker than I thought you would get from peeled paint. I don't actually watch Tim's videos because they're always far too long. I haven't the attention span for an 1, 2, 3 hour video. I rarely watch one that's more than 20 minutes, unless the project is just amazing. But I do love his stuff. I don't think he's ever done a product that I didn't think was absolutely gorgeous. Okay. I don't think that dark stripe is going to matter too much, but we're going to put this down again and get a little more ink on there. And now I'm going to dry it off. Now, I recently discovered a video about how to edit your YouTube videos in YouTube. I'm going to have to give that a try, but I'm not sure I'm brave enough to try that just yet. So I'm going to see how fast I can make this go. Now, I have Rustic Wilderness, which is again kind of a yellowy green. I'm going to spread that on my very old stamp. I don't have any Inkylicious stamps. They're really pretty, but there's a limit to the amount of storage space I've got. And I've got other things that are kind of similar, so I've had this one for probably, this is one of the first I got when I started stamping. Now, I'm going to give it a very brief squirt so that it's wet and watercolory, and put it down. And again, I want to leave it for a while to let the ink soak in. With the first one, I think I didn't wait long enough for the ink to really soak into the water, into the wet card. And I think that's why I got this. Yeah, see how it's just hard to see what you're seeing there. Shapes of trees, but no real trees. With this one, I waited longer, and I got a lot more water staining than I would have hoped for, but it's better. So I decided to give some extra try to this one with letting it sit. What do you think? Smear that out a little bit better. think having the stems dark like that is a good thing. Okay, now clean up the stamp again. Probably could leave it, but I don't know. There we go. So now I'm going to take my Lucky Clover and put a little more green on there. Give it just the tiniest spritz. And again, let it sit for a while so that it can spread. I'm not a watercolor person, so I didn't realize just how long it takes for the watercolor paper to absorb. It's not the same thing quite as stamping with inks to get, well, the way I usually use them. And again, oh dear, just drag this through the puddle that I had been using. Oh well. So how did your holidays go? We generally ignore them, but my husband's family has traditionally had their family reunion on Christmas Day for Christmas lunch. And I really quite enjoy them. So for the last 10 years or so, since we've been living here nearby, we've been going. And they changed my mind. I really, really, really hated Christmas for Christmas' sake. But as a family reunion, it's not bad. Nonetheless, they had to drag me kicking and screaming to the first handful. And now we're going to clean up the stamp one more time. And this time, we want it fairly dry, because this is where we're going to get the detail. Now, if I could stand the sound of my drying whiz gig, I would do that. But I can't stand the sound. I'll do it when I have no choice. If you want beautiful embossing, you're going to have to deal with it. But that's not the case this time. Now my darkest ink is pine needles. I want that to give me some nice contrast. I'm going to be much more specific here about trying to get detail. I told you all about the rental problem. Well, we haven't actually heard anything so far, except that we have a date for our semi-annual, is it? Twice a year, rental inspection. And my walking buddy is from Limerick, and we all know about the Irish Second Sight, right? No, maybe you have to grow up in an Irish family to know about the Irish second sight. But anyway, she says she's quite sure that if the place is sold, it will be to another investor, and that she will that the new buyer will just continue to rent to us. I haven't let it stop me getting ready to move or squirreling away money in case we have to. But it's kept me a lot calmer to choose to believe that she's right. And then when that had started to settle down a little bit, we got word from one of our middle children, the one who turns 40 tomorrow, that his almost 15-year-old relationship has broken up. And he is now the single parent of 6 little children, one of whom has profound autism and is going to require a great deal of his time and care. It was a lot of work for them as a pair. I can't imagine how he's going to handle it on his own. But he's an amazing man, and I'm sure he'll manage, and we'll do what we can to help. And as we were coming to terms with that, because of course his lady love is a wonderful person and we're going to miss her, but I don't get the impression she wants to stay involved with us. I'll try. I'll send her a note and tell her that we care. But I wouldn't be surprised to be cut off, because so often that's what happens. Anyway, then a member of our family, one who's very, very big on communication, disappeared and was out of touch for, I think it was 18 hours. Now, that doesn't sound that terrible when I put it that way. I mean, I'm not in touch with very many people, often enough that I would notice if they went missing for 18 hours. But this particular family member is a major on communication. And when they went radio silence and their phone was not contactable overnight, okay, that seemed strange because it's not usual, but but then for all of the next day, that was scary. That was really scary. It all turned out to be a great big misunderstanding. The accidental poke of an airplane mode button when a note was being sent to explain what was going on, but it never got sent because it was on airplane mode, and because nobody knew it was on airplane mode, nobody missed that there were phone calls not being answered. And yeah, so about late afternoon yesterday, the contact was reestablished and everybody's happy now, but it was a hair-raising time, I'll tell you. Yeah. I'm going to try that again because I'm not seeing very much detail in there. Probably because the card is still too wet. So I guess I'm going to try editing. So that I can dry this card. You may or may not hear this, because this is the part I will clip out if necessary, and if I can figure out exactly how to do that. Ah, that's better. Now I can see some detail. So, we'll lift this off, clean off the stamp. Oh. Now to finish up the card. So far so good, right? So now we need to do the sky. Okay, that was the green brush. So now I am using tumbled glass for the first layer of the sky. Don't want to go too close to the trees while everything is still very wet. Sorry about that. Wrong glasses. Much easier to do when you can see what you're doing. Okay. Just a little bit of blue. So the trees don't look like they're in some kind of a showcase. There's actual nature around them. Okay, now clean up the blue. Put down a darker blue, broken china. So we'll give the sky a little more texture. I'm not going to worry too much about the edges because I like the torn edged effect. It's beautiful today. We've had several days near 100 degrees. And we're close enough to the sea that it's more like being in a convection oven than it is in mid-Michigan, where I spent 30 years. That's sort of like living in a sauna. But still, 100 is hot. And today, it's dropped in the low 70s. Fabulous. Fabulous. I'm loving it. Okay, now I'm putting down faded jeans for some cloudy sky. I don't want too much water here. Paper's wet enough. Shadow under the trees. Okay, sky's done. Get the blue off the brush so we don't make a mess the next time we grab it. And green. I think we will use pine needles and rustic wilderness for the grass. And pine needles again. For the shadows under the trees. Too much water or too cheap a paper, I'm not sure, but it's pilling. Okay. Now, get a dry cloth and pick up the excess water. I have not been thrilled at this stage with any of them. Now that it's a little bit drier, I'm going to try putting down some more sky. Around the trees. Well, I'm sure that if you have any talent at all at using inks as watercolor, you can take this idea and do a much better job than I have. Okay, what do you think? Does it look like a watercolor or does it look like a mess? You choose. And now I'm going to tear it right around the picture. This is one of those cards that if I weren't trying to make a video, I would almost certainly have taken many, many hours, probably several days to do it. That's partly because when I started crafting, I was working 50 hours a week, taking care of a very small boy when I wasn't at work. My husband was his at-home carer, but I remember how tiring that was. And I also couldn't bear to be separated from my little boy any more than necessary. So a lot of my time was taken up with work and childcare, but I still wanted to craft. I really, really wanted to craft. So what I would do is I would lay things out on my dressing table and move things around and do a step and get dressed and go to work. And then come back and do another step in the 5 minutes while I was changing from my office clothes. And that just became the way I do it. I would sometimes have 2 or 3 projects since I retired that I have in progress. And then I became fascinated by Wandering Dreamer's videos. We've known each other for years and years and years. Probably since those days when I was just beginning, because I had never encountered the concept. Well, I had come across stamps in Meyer, which is, yeah, if you're from the Midwest, you know, and if you don't, well, an ex used to refer to it as the place where you can buy a snowblower, vodka, and a daiquiri mix. They've got everything. So, but I looked at them and I didn't know how to use them, and I couldn't imagine paying that much for something that I could only use once, or maybe twice. But Wandering Dreamer sent me some of her stuff. And she, at the time, was getting out of stamping and into jewelry making, and she sent me just a box of treasures. I was amazed. And I did find ways to use some stamps because there they were. But then cue COVID many, many, many years later. And she mentioned that she had a video channel and gave me the link. Well, I was amazed at what she knew how to do. I was just croggled. And so after a while, I started joining her. You know, I would make something for one of her challenges, and she would do a video of my stuff. And I was astonished. The people actually seemed to like what I was doing. And then after a while, it had dawned on me that it wasn't fair. She still works full time, but she was having to make videos for me. Well, surely surely I could learn to do that. And so I did. I think it's maybe been almost 2 years now. I haven't checked lately. So there we have it. There's its predecessor with the water staining in the middle of the trees. So I think I'm continuing to get a little better. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you next month for the 2025 Stash Builder collaboration. If you've left a note, I will be adding you to the thing below so people can find out where to go find your card. I can't wait to see what you've done.